The park was warm with sunlight, children chasing frisbees, strollers gliding on the path, the smell of coffee and cut grass. Maya Daniels sat on a bench cradling her newborn daughter, Aria wrapped in a soft blanket. Jeans, sweatshirt, hair pulled back, no uniform. Just a mother trying to breathe after months of sleepless nights. A shout cut through the laughter. Two officers approached, one hand on his holster, the other holding a leash that connected to a German shepherd, muscles coiled and eyes alert. "Ma'am!" the taller officer barked, scanning her. "We had a report about a suspicious woman watching the playground. Mind telling us what you're doing here?" Maya looked up, calm. "Feeding my baby," she said softly, indicating the tiny, sleeping face in her arms. The second officer smirked. "Sure ID, please." She reached for her purse. "I'm not resisting." "Hands where we can see them," the first officer ordered. The dog growled low, the sound rippling across the park. Mothers pulled their children close. Phones came out. Maya's heartbeat tightened, not from fear but from memory. She'd handled dangerous situations before, explosive warnings, broken fences of war zones, dogs lurching at strangers. None of that compared to the cold bite of being presumed dangerous while holding the most vulnerable thing she owned. "You don't need to shout," she said quietly. "I'm not a threat." But prejudice is a mirror. It only reflects what the watcher wants to see. The taller officer's hand tightened on the leash. "Step away from the bench." "I have a newborn." "Hand her over!" The officer barked louder. The dog strained, then, reckless and untethered, the leash was unclipped. It lunged. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. Some parents stood to protect their children. Phones were already recording. The dog barreled forward, teeth bared. Then, in an instant, Maya's whole body shifted. She didn't scream. She didn't flinch. Her voice cut through the chaos, a command honed by years of training. "Halt! Sit!" The shepherd stopped mid-lunge as if hitting an invisible wall. It lowered itself into a sit, ears flicking toward her, confused but obedient. The park went shockingly silent, so quiet that the rustle of leaves sounded loud. The officers froze, dumbfounded. The dog, calm now, sat at Maya's feet, tail low, eyes soft. Maya stood and gently stroked the animal's flank without letting go of Aria. The taller officer stammered, "How did you—" Maya's eyes met his. She reached into her bag and pulled out an ID badge, worn at the edges. Seal faded slightly from field use. "Sergeant Maya Daniels," she said, voice steady. "K-9 Division, retired, trained dogs like this for 8 years." The realization hit the crowd like cold rain. Phones kept filming. Mothers whispered. The dog looked up at her with a recognition the officers hadn't earned. "Before we continue, if you're still watching this story, like and subscribe, because what happens next will leave you speechless." The taller officer's face went pale. We didn't know." "No," Maya said, bitterness thin as silk. "You didn't check. You saw a black woman and assumed the worst." A supervisor arrived minutes later. He took one look at Maya's credentials, and his apology came out fast and clumsy. "Sergeant Daniels, I'm sorry. Those officers will be spoken to." "Train them," she interrupted. "Make sure they know difference between protection and power." She kept her voice low, but the words landed like stones. The dog's handler, small and shaken, kept glancing at Maya as if hoping she'd forgive him for what he'd done. Maya crouched just enough to scratch the shepherd behind the ear, soft and quick like she always had. The animal leaned into her touch, trust obvious on its face. "You taught him to obey," the shaken officer said, voice barely audible. "And he remembers his handlers," Maya replied. "Even the ones who leave." She didn't perform a spectacle. No triumphant speech, no dramatic exit. She tucked Aria deeper into the blanket, kissed her forehead, and stood. Mothers around the park murmured, some apologetically, some ashamed, some angry on her behalf. The supervisor offered her a card and words of regret. She took none of it. "Just train them," she repeated, "so another mother doesn't have to show her papers while holding her child." As she walked away, the shepherd padded back to its handler. But before it left, it turned and looked at Maya once more, as if checking where its true loyalty had been. The dog's glance was small, ordinary, But for the officers watching, it felt like a verdict. Maya stepped off the path, shade falling across her shoulders. The park returned to its lazy rhythm, but something had altered in the air. People eyed one another differently now. Cameras uploaded footage, comments scrolled, and the story spread in minutes. No one cheered. No one booed. They simply watched her pass, quiet and unbending. A mother nearby whispered, "She didn't even raise her voice, because she didn't have to." Another answered softly. Later that evening, Maya sat on a couch in her small apartment, Arya nursing at her breast. The sunlight slanted through the blinds, and the world felt, for a moment, ordinary again. She'd faced storms and come home. Today had been a different kind of battle, one fought in daylight, among picnics and joggers. She thought about the dogs, warm head against, her hand, and how easily assumptions could become violence. Her phone buzzed with a message from someone who'd filmed the moment. "You saved us all from watching something worse. Thank you." Maya smiled tiredly, eyes on her daughter, and whispered, "You're safe. I'll always be here. Because sometimes the fiercest protection needs no weapon, only a voice, trained to be heard."